and Lisa Loves Wines can relate back to the tourists in the term that the tourist might understand and know because of my experience in Europe and the mindset of the European consumer, and also the wine consumer, for which in which I work, in the milieu in which I worked, and as a brand manager and in marketing and sales. So it's a different type of tour if you can relate back to where the tourist comes from. No.
Well, that's interesting. So, are you currently, when people come on the tour, do you personally take them on the tour?
Yeah. Yes, at this stage I do it personally. Well, at the moment not because of the virus. Funnily enough, the virus is, well, my industry is wine and tourism, and both of them are pretty much kaput now in lockdown. But when I do tours, I do it personally. It's all hands-on. And yes, what people appreciate is the knowledge of wines. Yeah, as I said, in the language of origin and the personal nature. I think people appreciate an authentic experience. And I also visit wineries that not run-of-the-mill wineries, smaller wineries, or just unknown wineries. You know, each winery has a story to tell. So that's what makes it a bit different.
Well, that's very nice. I mean, that's our
Yeah.
aim is to tell the story of the wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I quickly want to share something exciting. I have heard via the grapevine that the Fishwives Club will be launching a new lifestyle club soon. If you have not heard of the Fishwives Club yet, just know that you are probably missing out on the sexiest wine label out there. To stay in the loop, please quickly go and follow them on Instagram. The Instagram handle is @thefishwivesclublifestyle. Let me repeat that, @thefishwivesclublifestyle. Now, on with the show.
So, Lisa, in terms of any other services you offer or you're planning to offer, can you expand on that now, or are you going to keep it a secret to a later date?
It's a little bit, well, it's a little bit fresh,
Okay.
but I'm super excited about it. So I'm going to reveal it. I would like to offer a platform for other wines, for people in Cape Town who are interested in wines. I find that there's a lack of accessible European and other world wines in South Africa, and I would like that will be my next project, because I'm literally sitting at the source of a whole network of producers in the world that offer wonderful value for money and are unknown. And I think the South African wine connoisseur is appreciative enough of good quality wines that do not need to be a brand or a well-known brand or wine. I think South African palates are evolved enough to be able to appreciate lesser known, good value for money wines. And I would like to import these and offer a platform not only to taste the wines, but to experience them as a cultural offering, with food, and still want to see how it develops with maybe, for example, if you do sherry, then you might have a flamenco player, or you do sort of a pop-up system where you, for 1 month, you showcase sherry and the region sherry and the culture of sherry, the food of Jerez, and the next month you do the south of France, but with brands that you might not know and are still great value for money. I look forward to partner with someone in the future and offer this right here, and especially now after Corona, where people might not be able to or do not want to travel to these countries, offering them right here, these experiences right here might be very interesting.
I just wanted to ask you about that. I mean, I think it's a fantastic idea, and I wondered if you're planning collaboration with some local partners or even other producers locally that I think personally that, for somebody here in South Africa to appreciate their own produce and our own wines, we need to expand our horizons and taste other stuff as well. So yeah, I think that is absolutely a fantastic idea.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have no with other individuals, yes, but not with wineries at this stage. No.
Okay, that's
because
interesting.
I would be strictly speaking not a competition to them, but it would also be interest. Well, funnily enough, the winemakers in the region, all the people, the producers in the region, they all import wines from all over the world to be able to benchmark their own product. Because that's the one thing that's missing in South Africa, is that we have everything, in European countries, or in Germany, where I lived before, you have everything on offer. You have every country on offer, and the countries compete with one another on the shelf. Whereas here, we only have, generally speaking, South African wines, and I think people are open to new tastes and new backgrounds and new concepts. It's just a question of getting the right entry point, because there's a misconception that overseas wines are extremely expensive, but that is, in fact, because it's always the brands that we see, and not necessarily the plain run-of-the-mill wines that are excellent quality and good value for money. And this is what I would like to showcase.
Well, that's amazing. So, Lisa, as a wine tour guide, and also with your business, Lisa Love Wines, and your presence online, you're becoming an influencer in the wine industry. So if a wine producer or a wine estate is sitting there and thinking, I want to get more people to me, how do they get your attention? What do they need to do?
It's so easy, all producers are unique. They all offer a story to tell, and I enjoy hearing all of them. My main media platform is Instagram at the moment. I just enjoy the simplicity of pictures, videos, and a few words. And this is the thing that I particularly, as with people, wineries, producers, each winery or producer has a specific angle and a specific story to tell. And I think that I'm quite good at finding that story and portraying it, an authentic story, not necessarily that which most marketers tap into, where you need a lot of money. I don't believe in that. I believe in finding that story or that angle which everyone has, because all wineries are unique, all producers are unique. Finding that story, and it's not an expensive thing, and then to speak of that and reveal that to the world. And I think that's what makes Lisa Loves Wines unique, is the capacity to see that in a producer or in a winery.
That sounds awesome. So you've mentioned the coronavirus, and like you said, it forces everyone to rethink their business models. I like your idea of bringing the world to South Africa.
Yeah.
Do you have any other changes or ideas for your business in mind? And do you have any ideas for your producers as well, on what they can do while they're stuck in a system where they can't really accept visitors to their place?
I think this is a wonderful opportunity to engage with your customers, with your public, in an interesting, well, as I always say it again, but in an authentic manner, to find what is your unique offering. And that I find very important for all producers, is to find that and to showcase it. But the way that the world of tourism will change, at least, is that I think we're going to have to focus a lot on local tourism and engage our own people, and that's going to be important for wineries and producers to find a way how to attract them. I envisage like family reunion packages, where people can come out to the winelands, to a place that they maybe don't know, and sit around a fire and drink wine and enjoy each other's company as a family, where they feel safe and secure. And that's going to be very important after the corona, is that people feel safe and feel that things are clean and that it's, they can be sure that um, the chances are very small that they will contract the virus, because that's something that's on everyone's mind.
Awesome. That sounds like a very good idea. So, Lisa, your wine journey has been interesting. So, what is the most important thing that you've learned from your wine journey?
That most people in the world have the same idea about life, love, and laughter. We can all sit around a table, enjoy each other's company, all of us, mostly. It's rare that people are utterly unenjoyable. All we need is a table and a glass of wine and a platform to connect.
That's interesting. So, on that note, can you give us your very own wine quote?
Yes, yes. Wine and vines are very much like people. Those that struggle or make an effort in life are far more interesting and have more character than those who do not.
Awesome.
That's my finding. Yes.
That's very good. Lisa, if people want to get hold of you, how do they find Lisa Loves Wines? How do they find you?
On Instagram, on Facebook, those are the platforms that I am keeping up to date. I'm restructuring my website, as everyone else is doing in the corona time. And my website will be live within the next month. I'll have my new website out.
Awesome. We'll put all the links down in the description. Lisa, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time speaking to us, and I'm sure our listeners will find this interesting.
Yes, thank you.
And
thank you.
Yeah, I know you're busy, so thank you for the
Excellent.
time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description. Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we will be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, and other role players. Tune in every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for our latest episodes. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to About the Winelands. Today I'm talking to Lawrence Rillian. Lawrence is the marketing manager at Darling Cellars. Hello, Lawrence. How are you?
Hi, well, I'm good, and you?
I'm good. How are you coping with the current situation? Everything well?
Yes, yeah, well, in the lockdown, I think it's difficult for anyone and everyone. I'm working from home, so I've been here since the lockdown. We did open, so we can export since Monday, so we've got quite a few exports going out. And production's also started, so at least there's some light in the end of the tunnel. But I think it's a challenging period, and yeah, I think going ahead is going to be difficult as well. So, but be positive, and we'll get through it. So, yeah,
I'm sure we all will. So tell us,
yes.
Lawrence, how did you get involved in the wine industry, and what is your background?
I grew up in Paarl, so basically I grew up in the winelands. And my father and mother, they used to drink some wine, and obviously I was introduced to wine. Well, growing up in Nepal, and I know a lot of farmers there in Nepal. Most of them, obviously, they delivered to KWV and Nederburg at that stage. It was quite some time back. But yes, so I grew up in the winelands, and I went studying in Stellenbosch and Cape Town, and I did some courses in management and retailing and marketing. After that, I went to Europe, and I traveled, and most of the time I stayed in France for about 9 months and obviously drank quite a lot of wine there.
Awesome. Where in France did you stay?
I stayed mostly in Paris, and then we hitchhiked. I didn't work. I was just after I studied, so I was just having some fun, and yeah, I was very interested in going to France, and yeah, it learned me quite a lot of things, and obviously from wines as well. And we hitchhiked basically through France and stayed at places and stayed with people and on beaches and whatever, as you do in that stage. Those when you were young, like 20 years old. I think nowadays you can't do that anymore. But yeah. So anyway, so I came back, and that was just after the 94. So when the South Africa had the new democratic government. So I was looking for a job, and I found a job in the wine industry, which is basically I worked for a liquor store. And then after that, I worked for wine farms. I started at Bull and Kelder, Bull and Cellars now these days in Paul. And from there, I went to Tolbach Winery, and now I'm at Darling Cellars. So yeah, it's basically in short how I got involved in the wine industry.
Do you actually live in Darling, or do you drive through to the cellar?
No, I stayed in Rebecca still, so I've gone back to my yeah, my wife works in Franschhoek, so we need to have a midway somewhere. So it's either Wellington, Rebecca Still, Hermon, or Malmesbury. And we quite like Rebecca Still, so I also got married here a few years back ago. Okay. But I like the quiet. It's nice and quiet if you want it, and if it can get quite busy during weekends if you want it. So you can do, and it's close. You're close to the airport, close to the city. Half an hour's drive to work, so it's not that busy. Only traffic is a few sheep and cows maybe in the road somewhere, but otherwise it's all it's all good.
So Darling Cellars, can you tell us, give us a bit of history? Our listeners would be interested to hear what the history of Darling Cellars would be.
Yes, Darling. Well, we situate about 80 kilometers from Cape Town, in between Darling, the town Darling, and Malmesbury. So it takes about 45 minutes to drive from the airport to there, so that's not that far. We established in 1994 as a Mammerweg co-op cellar, and then we changed to a company in 1996, and that's where the name Darling Cellars came from, Darling Cellars Pty Limited. Nowadays we have around 18 shareholders, about 900 hectares, 75% red, 25% white. We harvest wine of origin Darling, about 5,500 tons, and then we do buy in from other areas that we use for contract packaging. So in total, we can do about 10,000 tons. The cellar can do about 10,000 tons.
Oh, that's quite big.
Yeah, we're medium sized. There's cellars that do double and triple and quadruple that. So we in the middle. We're the biggest in our area. In wine of origin Darling, we're the biggest there. There's only four or five wineries in wine of origin Darling, which makes us quite unique. There's not a lot of people that can say wine of origin Darling. So, the whole area is renowned for obviously for Sauvignon Blanc and for Shiraz. And then, the past few years, we moved into some nice Chenin Blancs, some nice Pinotages. So it's it's a nice, quite diverse, And most of about 90% of the wines is dryland and bush wines, which also made it a little bit different. So yeah.
So interesting. You said that you moved from a cooperative to a company setup. I assume that you still basically have almost like a cooperative type of structure. In other words, your shareholders will basically still be the original producers, or the producers delivering at your cellar would be the major shareholders, right? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And of the shareholders, you have that 80-20% kind of ratio. So 20% of the shareholders will deliver probably 80% of the grapes that we get in. But it's
amazing how that always works, right? So I see I see you guys have a tasting room. So obviously open to visitors. So what can a guest experience when they come to your tasting room?
Our tasting room, we've upgraded our tasting room. Well, we continuously upgrading our tasting room as we go along. So we've got all our wines basically for taste, from the top range down to the entry level range. We do serve light lunches. Not a big menu, but we're not a restaurant. But you can have cheese platters, and you can have choices of 2 or 3 sometimes. Christine, our girl who's handling the sales at the cellar door, she will, like on a Wednesday, she'll have special meals, fish and chips, or she will have, and she will advertise on Facebook and all social media, and you must book ahead, and that was quite popular. So we'll have stews maybe in the winter, and we'll have soups and all those kind of things, and then sometimes we'll have wine pairings with that. We had a sushi and MCC wine pairing some time back. So all of that, and then obviously we have an outside tent where you can sit under the tent. It's raining, or if it's cold, or if it's sun. We can do cellar tours, but that's only an appointment. For tasting, you don't have to make an appointment. I think it's 20 Rand for 5 wines to taste, and if you buy something, then we waive the tasting fee. So come and join us.
From my perspective, Darling is an interesting place to visit, but it's a bit off the beaten track of your traditional wine route. So, do you actually are most of your visitors locals, or do you get international tourists as well? Are you part of a wine route in that area?
Well, you don't have a specific wine route. The wine route is Darling wine route, but yeah, at this stage, it's not 100% going, but we do work with each other. So we work with the other farms, and we do have international tasters or people that media and people that come. You can say we're off the beaten track, but I think we're getting more exposure the past few years. A lot of people, the West Coast is growing quite fast, and a lot of people are going there on holidays and on weekends. So they drive past us, and with a lot of things happening in the town of Darling, like the Darling Brew, and all those kind of things, people do come to the area. So it's just not, we get obviously a lot of locals, but we do have a lot of international trade coming through. And since we've started serving light meals, we had an influx of people. I think our people and our turnover in December doubled from the previous year. So we're definitely growing, and we're getting I think the area is growing, and a lot of people are looking for something different. I think a lot of people know Stellenbosch, they know Franschhoek and all the other wine areas. And being so close to the Swartland as well, a lot of people are coming through, and maybe on their way to somewhere else, but they'll drive past us and we'll stop and come in. So yes, we do have not the masses obviously that you get into Franschhoek and Stellenbosch, but maybe it's a nice thing just to go if you want to chill a little bit more and get some wines from different areas, different tastes. It's also good.
Excellent. So if I understand correctly, your cellar also provides bottling and labeling services, or a range of services to clients besides your producers that are delivering. Am I right if I say this? Can you expand on this a bit more?
Yes, yeah, we do. We do have winemaking. We offer lots of services. So we make wines for other wineries, or we also bottle. We've got our own bottling plant that we do 750 ml glass, and we do have bag and box lines that we do bag and box for contract packaging, for export or local, doesn't matter. So we do provide that services. We also provide, basically we can be a one-stop shop. So we can make the wine, we can bottle, label, everything, and we can ship it from our premises for export. So yes, we offer all that services, and we also IFS and BRC accredited. Vita, all our farmers are Vita accredited. So that helps for all the exports, and we also, as a seller, we are fair trade accredited, so we can do all those services as well.
So who would your largest clients be? Would it be people that maybe want to build a wine brand but don't have their own wine estate, or maybe supermarkets that want to do their own in-house labels or something like that? Or who would the typical clients be?
Well, it's both. It's all of them above, and
Okay.
so it depends on what are your depends on. So we do contract packaging for a company in Denmark, Amka, who is our biggest client basically. So we do packaging for them. Plus we do obviously sell our own labels to them as well.
That's awesome.
We have retailers that we do brands for. One of them is Co-op in the UK that we do the Chenin Blanc.
I've actually seen that one before at the Co-op, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear that.
Yeah. So yeah, so we do got and we obviously do local as well. We supply to some other wineries and for their brands and which they export and all those kind of things. So yeah, we're quite diverse. So we're open for basically anything.
Okay, that's interesting. So I mean, further than this, you're saying and this, you're making your own label as well, and you obviously have your own vineyards. So tell us a bit more about your own wines and also the winemaking philosophy at Darling.
Okay, so yeah, so we've got quite a few cultivars that we grow in Darling. We've got about 10 different white and about 16 different red cultivars that we can use. But the main ones basically your Chenin Blanc, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, the white side, and then on the red side, Cabernet, Shiraz, Pinotage. We've got some nice Cinsault, then old Merlot, and then obviously Grenache and all that kind of different reds. So we work in tiers. We've got different tiers of our products. So we have a top tier which is called the Old Bush Vines, which we have two wines in. We've got a Chenin Blanc and a Cinsault. So both of these wines are also part of the Old Vines project. So the vineyards needs to be 35 years or older. So that's a project we started about 3 years ago because we had this vineyards that's 40 years and older, and obviously the yields on these were really low. And to try and protect them and to keep them in the ground, we need to make wines of that and obviously sell at a higher price so that we can pay the farmers a little bit more money. So otherwise it's not financially viable for them. So we've got those. That's basically our top range of the Old Bush Vines. Then we have a heritage range, which brings back the heritage of the whole area of Darling. So it's we've got a Sir Charles Darling. He was actually the governor of Cape Town and in the late 1600s, and the town of Darling was named after him. So we named a wine after him, so Sir Charles Darling, which is a Cab Merlot blend. And then we have Lady Anne Darling, which was one of his wives. He had 3 wives, and that is a Sauvignon Blanc Semillon blend. And then we have a Lime Kilns. Lime Kilns is at the heritage sites on your way to Azerfontein. You'll find they used to make the lime that they paint the white houses on the west coast. So there's kilns that they burn the shells, the white shells, to make this white powder to paint. So that's the other label. And the last one is the Old Grain Silo, which the whole area started as grain farming in some back. So that's the 4 wines that we have in our heritage range. Then we've got a Gustus range, which is a premium range, which is all single cultivars. You'll get Cabernet, Merlot, Shiraz, Chenin Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc. We've also got a Bouquetraube in that range, which is quite interesting. Bouquetraube is a cultivar that's long lost, forgotten, actually. I think in South Africa, a long time ago, it was quite popular as a sweeter kind of style wine.
I remember we used
there's about 70...
In the 80s, we used to get that on the Stellenbosch wine route. It used to be...
yes.
Yes. I actually didn't notice that, but it has been tapering off. I haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah, so there's only 70 hectares left in the world, I think, and South Africa's got about 55, and we've got 5.75. So it's
Wow.
quite a unique, very scarce customer, and so we make a dry Bukachaba, and we sell it under the Gustus brand, which is very popular, and won a gold at Mundus Vini in Germany last year as well. So yeah, that's something interesting, something different, and then we've got our reserve range, which and the Chocoholic is a pinotage that's part of the reserve range. I'm not sure if you know the Chocoholic. That's like a blue label that's on the market. So it's doing very well. It's one of our best sellers of our red wines in South Africa and international as well. But that the reserve range consists of 4 reds and 3 whites and a rosé, a Pajama Bush, which is a Grenache Sauvignon Blanc Grenache blend. So those wines is mainly, you'll find them in basically all of your retail stores. The other wines, it's normally you'll find it online, or you'll find it at the cellar door only, because it's more premium and more reserved wine. And then we've got our entry-level wines, which is a classic, the Cab Merlot, the classic Cab Merlot, Chenin Sauvignon Blanc. Then we've got some sweet wines as well. And we've got 4 MCCs. So we've got an ultra premium MCC, which falls also on the Old Bushvine range, which is a 36 months on the lease Chardonnay. And then we've got a normal Blanc de Blanc, which sells very well. We've also got a rosé, which is made of Grenache, which we've got a listing in Sweden. And then we've got a sweet white, which is made of Chenin Blanc. So the MCC range is also doing very well. But yeah, that's basically the ranges that we sell. We do have other labels as well, but that's mostly for export or for certain specific customers. But those are the main, basically, tiers and labels that you'll find at our cellar door.
Well, this is quite interesting. It sounds to me like, I mean, you were talking about you're doing quite a bit of exports.
Just a quick interruption, but I do need to remind you that we are currently in a very difficult time. The South African government has set up a fund where businesses and individuals can donate to support their country through this crisis. Go to the website now and add your small donation. www.solidarityfund.co.za. Please join us all in the fight against COVID-19. That is at www.solidarityfund.co.za. Now, let's get on with the show.
What is your breakdown between export sales and the local market? Do you sell in supermarkets, that type of stuff as well, or I mean your own labels now, or not?
Yes, yeah, no, we're quite big in South Africa. I think about the end of last year, Nielsen figures, we were in the top 20 of brands in South Africa. So we sell to all the major retailers, restaurants, independents. So all our distribution in South Africa is done by Vinimark, who is our agent, who's doing all the distribution. So yes, so we are quite well represented in South African markets. It is a very big market for us, and it's about 65% of our sales, of our packaged sale, bottled sales, which is important for us. And then obviously the difference, the 30% is for export, 30-40%. But that's only for our bottled wines. The bag-and-box wines, we don't do that in South Africa, but we do export that. But that's different kind of volume that we do there, quite big. We are available online through different platforms, and the major retailers, I think, with the current situation with lockdown, I think a lot of people are going to start buying online.
Mm-hmm.
We will also have our own dedicated online site.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because I mean, obviously with the coronavirus, everyone is forced to rethink their business models, right? I noticed that with some of the previous producers I've been speaking to, they refocusing on their online sales, and also on things like wine clubs and stuff like that to obviously stimulate sales while people might buy now, or if they're not offering a club, they might offer some discounts or something like that. So, do you have any changes or new ideas in mind that came around from this whole Corona thing?
Yes, I think we need to think differently. We need to do the marketing differently. We need to do the sales differently. So there's a lot of things that will change and needs to change. And yeah, some of them are the online sales. I think people will, and depending on how the levels playing out for the next few months, people will do well. They won't have a choice but to buy online if they're not allowed to go to the normal brick and mortar kind of shops. So yes, we are fixing up and getting more online and specials running on there. And if you join, you get a 5% discount and all those kind of things. And so we are all doing that and planning to see what we can do after the lockdown is finished. So I think it's going to be a bit of a rush. I think a lot of people are going to rush buy wines and whatever else they need when the lockdown is finished. So by buying now, we're getting orders at the moment so that people know that they will be first in line to get the deliveries to their home online. So that's one positive. But I think yes, it depends, and the future is we don't know what it holds in. We don't know how long this lockdown is still going to be and what's going to have the effect for the next few months or years, for that matter.
Well, that's
I think
true, right? Uncertainty is a big thing in this market at the moment.
Yeah, and I think you need to adapt as you go along. You obviously you plan ahead, and we made our plans, and we had a lot of different kind of scenarios that we're playing out to see how we're gonna get through this and how we're gonna get healthy and survive on the other side. But things can change daily, so you need to adapt as quick as possible as you can as you see things change. So the opportunities are there. You need to take them, and you need to be active and quick. So one of them are online, yes, and the social media, all of that. But I think that they still do have a place for your normal retail. People will still go buy their retail. I think people will just maybe in the beginning, they'll buy case lots in bulk, maybe just to stock up again, because you never know when we're going back to level 5 again,
well,
or 4 again.
But I think also another thing that will happen is it's going to take a long time for international tourism worldwide to go back to its previous levels. So we might see a lot of local tourism. Are you planning to maybe expand on your local offering in terms of maybe extending your tasting room or offering more food or something like that, which seemed to work anyway? Is that something?
Yes, we definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's. We've already drawn up the plans, everything. We actually wanted to start now in January, February with the alterations, and then luckily or unluckily, we just extended it for a longer period, and then the lockdown came. Oh. So yes, we're going to extend. We're going to build a formal venue and so with which we can have different kind of offices or venues and
that's
yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, we want to expand that definitely, and we want to start concentrating on getting tour groups and buses in there, and the offering to make the offer just much more bigger than what we're doing it now. We're doing it slowly. We're doing it step by step. Obviously, cash flow is a big concern for any business, and this time it's going to be very crucial. So you need to just have to plan carefully and how you're going to spend your money and how.
It's interesting, now that you say all of this, in terms of marketing, and you're a marketing guy, so you know this, I read some interesting statistics the other day about, brands that kept on marketing during difficult times, during recessions, that this study was done from the Great Depression through the World Wars and everything. And one thing they noticed is that people that kept on advertising and kept on pushing their brand actually outperformed the peers that cut their cost, the marketing budgets, actually by a wide margin over time, because that brands tend to stay people's heads. And I think the guys that are doing a lot of, people are doing these online tastings and stuff like that to keep their brands in people's minds. I think that is quite a clever thing to do. I'm not sure what your feeling is on that. And then also, in addition to that question, how important is social media become in your marketing?
Yeah, I think if you can keep on, it's definitely. I think it's a definitely advantage if you can. If you can keep up the marketing. And one thing is, I think it's debatable, but if you do a lot of marketing now and you do a lot of advertising and the whole thing, but you can't buy the wines. I'm not, you see, it's obviously you have the brand awareness and people know about you and all things. Yes, it's fine. But at this stage, people want to buy your wine, and they can't. So it's difficult. So I do think it's good if you can stay on top of it, and if you can keep your marketing budgets as previously, or maybe spend more if you can. There will definitely be advantage on the other side. But it's difficult to do that, and obviously each company will have to see what he can do and can't do. Social media, yes, social media is becoming more and more part of our life. I think the younger generations is much more obviously on the social media side, and the thing is that I think you need to change continuously. You need to have new stuff continuously. Otherwise, people just gonna be bored and just go to the next brand or the next product.
It's a constant fight for attention on social media, unfortunately.
Yes, yes, and it's relatively cheap, but there is some, because everyone can go on there. Obviously, the competition is very high. So yes, it's an easy way, but it's also a difficult way because you need to stand out. Not only brands in Africa, but brands worldwide. So because everyone's got a platform, everyone can do that. So it's you need to know what you're doing, and we are doing it, and we've got an agency that's doing our social media. So we try to upgrade and adapt that so as we go along. But I think part of that's obviously going to the online wine sales, and we'll be live from tomorrow. I think from our website to buy. And obviously, we can only deliver once the lockdown is finished.
But yes, your chance now, Lawrence. What is the special that your listeners can get on your online site from tomorrow?
Well, if you join as a member, then you get automatically 5% discount. Okay. So that will be from tomorrow. I don't think, probably after 12 o'clock from tomorrow, Friday. If you go on our website, there's a buy button, and if you go there, we go to our wine shop. And if you register as a member, then you automatically get 5% discount. And there's this if you buy continuously, then you get to become a gold member, and you get to automatically 10% discount. So there's certain stages that you can go through. So and then if you buy more than 1,500 rands worth of wines, then your delivery is for free. So there's all different kind of advantages that you can take during the lockdown.
Well, I'm telling you what, if I'm a wine buyer, I'm definitely going to spend more than 1,500 rand, because what happens if we go into lockdown again? Never. Don't want to take that chance.
Exactly. Again, right? Yeah.
So in your wine journey, Lawrence, what is the most important thing that you've learned?
Well, I've traveled quite a bit, and extensively in the world, from Asia to Europe and Africa and all over. So it's very interesting to see how the different cultures, how they operate, and obviously food-wise and social-wise, all those kind of things. That's obviously my main thing is the wine. And how do people drink wines, and why did I drink wine? So that's also very interesting for me, and that's what keeps me going. Is the wine, and the wine is a living thing. Wine is changing and adapting every day from different worlds. China is making a lot of wine. What I've tasted is not great, but I'm sure they'll get better. But I think the one thing is just the wine is something that brings people together. it's a social environment, hence the lockdown that you have to stay away from each other. But definitely, if you travel and you see people all over the world, different kind of backgrounds, different religions, all over. The one thing I would say is just be honest in what you're doing. The rest will come off. So if you just be honest about your wines, and talk, communication, that's a big thing. Talk to people and be honest to what you do and be true to yourself. So I think that's basically what I'll take from this.
Okay, awesome. So, okay, my last question for you is, can you give us your very own or your favorite wine quote?
Yeah, I don't have a quote for my own. But yeah, I think one quote is, well, it's not a quote, but maybe it says, if you're new to the wine, or you don't know wine, or you've known wine for a long time, I think one big thing is, don't let other people influence you. Drink the wines that you like. It doesn't matter which wines it is. It can be different kind of cultivars. It can be sweet. It can be dry and whatever. I think it's just because wine is such a variety, such a different types of styles and wines in the world. Even just from regions, from us to other regions, you'll find a difference in Sauvignon Blanc. But try and find the wines that you like and drink that. Don't let other people influence you.
Awesome. Lawrence, how do people find you if they're looking for you? How do they get hold of Darling Cellars?
Well, we're on a Facebook, and then it's at Darling Cellars, and then the best is probably just go to our website. It's www.darlingcellars.co.za. So it's as easy as that. And from there, you have all the different kind of contact persons, winemaker, including myself, or some of the marketing or sales people. And yes, there's also online buy button on our website. And then obviously on the Facebook, there's a wine shop now. I think that's the link. We're situated between Darling and Malmesbury. So if you're on that way, when the lockdown is over and you can drive around a bit, come and visit us. Come for a tasting, and we'll give you a nice tasting.
Lawrence, that's awesome. We'll leave all the links in the description of the of the show and everything, and we'll make sure to mention that people can buy from tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
Yes.
But thank you very much for taking the time, and appreciate that you spoke to us. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck with the rest of the lockdown.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and you too. Be safe.
Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description. Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we will be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, and other role players. Tune in every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for your latest episodes. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Before we start today's show, I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to our sponsor, Lisa Loves Wines. Lisa also shared with me that she has a very special offer for our listeners. I'm not sure if our listeners are aware, but magnum-sized bottles are becoming very fashionable in Europe, and I personally think that South Africa will follow suit shortly. So as part of her Big is Beautiful campaign, Lisa will be offering a 20% discount on the Chronicle 1.5 litre from Remoorte. This is a 1.5 litre Magnum, and I will ask the winemaker to give us a bit more information on this wine later in the show. This is a great deal. Father's Day is just around the corner, so I would suggest that you go grab this. We will leave the details and links on how to get this awesome offer inside the description. Now, on with today's show. Good day, everyone, and welcome back to About the Winelands. Today I'm talking to Rob and Chris Bouwstreet from Remoorte, a brother team. Welcome, guys, to About the Winelands.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Will.
So I think our listeners will be really interested to hear how you guys as brothers ended up working together and how you managed to work together without killing each other.
Good question. Okay, I'll just give you a bit of a background. So Chris and I, and our family, we're originally from Johannesburg. Our father was involved in construction. They're mainly developing lodges and that sort of thing, game lodges, but always very passionate about wine. And in 1993, him and my mom decided they wanted to make the move to the Western Cape and actually get into the wine industry. And in 1994, they found a property end of 1993. And in April 1994, we moved down during the elections. Chris and I were young. I was 10, Chris was 12. So we grew up here in Stellenbosch. And that's how we arrived here. But we went to school here. After school, Chris studied winemaking at Stellenbosch University. And then when I finished school, I went more the marketing route and ended up in the beer industry. So Chris, after traveling internationally in that, he came back in 2007, and then I came back in 2011. And then in terms of working together, I think, we're quite lucky that we both got very separate sides of the business and separate sort of interests in terms of Chris loves the vineyards and the winemaking side. He's obviously also very helpful with the sales side, but I prefer more the business marketing side and don't tend to get my hands dirty as often as Chris does. So I think that's important for us, is that we've each got very separate sides to the business. And although we, as a family business, obviously we do help each other out a lot in each other's department, but we sort of, we focus on our separate interests in the business, really.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think so. And then just to add to that, so just about Remoorte itself, the farm, we obviously bought in 1994, as Rob mentioned, and moved down, but the farm's we still got the title deeds from 1812, and it was going before that, but that's kind of a year when they gave out a lot of the title deeds to the area, and we actually the third family to own and live on the property. And then we're obviously me and Robert, obviously second generation. We took over from my dad on the farm itself.
Interesting. Have the farm always been under vines, or did you guys start the winery? Or
no, it's always been under vine. So we actually, a few years ago, a lady from Australia emailed us, and she was researching her family history. They were originally from South Africa. One of her ancestors was the constable, or the local police captain at Klapmuts, which is just down the road from us. And he was there from 1790 to 1792. And then on the records, it shows that after that, he made a living making wine on, it was then De Remwerchter. It's now just Remwerchter. So we know it was going from then, and they mentioned winemaking then, but when we took over, there was no winemaking happening. It was just growing. But vines have been here from the beginning, but obviously it's changed a little in that all the vines were planted kind of in the valleys and lower down, where since we've moved on, we've moved all the vines higher up, so up onto the slopes, looking for more exposed sites and sort of steeper slopes, better sites for vineyards.
Well, that's interesting. So you guys actually were the first people to actually make your own wines. I assume before that it all went to a cooperative or something, the grapes.
Exactly, yeah. So like a lot of the South African wine industry, you know, it was, especially in apartheid, it was very, everything was kind of quite controlled, and most of the stuff went to cooperative sellers. There was very few independent sellers. But yeah, my dad made the first wines here in 1995.
So you have your wines are exciting. Can you tell us a bit about your wines and also the free to be wines? What does that mean, and you know, how did it all start?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, we're passionate about being an estate. So from vineyard to bottle, we do on the property itself. So I mean, the Remwerchter range of wines are quite established. Obviously, my dad having started making them. I think myself and Rob, we've refined it a little in that we've cut one or two lines and sort of refined our portfolio. So we have 6 main wines that we produce now, which are, we do 2 Chenin Blancs. So Chenins are our main white focus under Remwerchter. And then we do a varietal Pinotage, a varietal Merlot, then our Chronicle, which is a Cape blend, and then our reserve is our Sir Thomas Cullinan. So we've got 6 wines under the Remwerchter stable, which, as mentioned, you know, Remwerchter quite established. We've been making it for a long time. We've got to stay consistent, and so people kind of know what to expect. Where free to be, we started about 3 years ago, 4 years ago now. The idea behind the free to be was to just allow a little bit of space in the cellar to be a little bit more creative, to try different techniques, maybe different varietals. So it's basically wines that are not under our Remwerchter, you know, they're not, they don't have to be as consistent as the Remwerchter wines. So we try and keep it interesting with the free to be by changing, you know, varietals or styles every year. So we do a red and a white every year, and there's no kind of recipe on what it is. But generally the reds, we try and make fresh, light, and, you know, really juicy, easy drinking reds. And then the whites, we've varied. We've done a skin ferment Chenin, Weisse Riesling more recently. But yeah, so the free to be is basically limited, very limited quantities, but something that allows me to play a little bit in the cellar.
That's interesting. Do you think that the actual market is also changing? Maybe, you know, a lot of people I talk to mention that millennials are changing our tastes a little bit. Is this part of the reason why you guys are experimenting?
Yeah, definitely. I think you know, the free to be created an opportunity for us to create to make exciting wines that opened up possibly new outlets for us. You know, high-end restaurants, something that sommeliers could really get excited about, skin ferment wines and interesting cultivars. So it's basically opened up a few doors for us where, you know, like Chris said, the Remwerchter brand is very consistent and long running. And the free to be is more of sort of a natural style of winemaking, and which is obviously on trend at the moment. And internationally, we found as well with our importers in the UK and the USA, there definitely is a market for a wine like the free to be. There's a lot of excitement about you know, really minimal interference, natural style winemaking, and interesting methods in the cellar as well. So that wine has opened up some doors for us in those markets. And I think, like you said, it tends to be the millennials.
What is the situation with vegan wines and that whole issue?
So, yeah, so I mean, vegan is basically no animal products. And as I'm sure you know, with wine, the additives or stuff that you're allowed to add would surprise most people. I think, you know, the number of, the number of products you're able to add and where they come from is pretty scary. But I think one of our things from when my dad started was that we believe wine's made in the vineyard. So when it comes to cellar, we don't want to add anything and we don't want to take anything away. So we want what you taste in the bottle to be what comes from the vineyard. So we do across all of our wines, we have a sort of a minimal interference or intervention philosophy. So put a lot of work into the vineyards to getting the grapes right, bring them into the cellar, let them ferment, mature them, and then bottle them. So maybe just a little bit of sulfur before bottling, but everything's unfined, unfiltered, and just basically trying to keep our wines as authentic as possible. But vegan, I mean, so one of the main, especially in red wines and white wines, one of the main sort of animal derivative products is protein or albumin from eggs, so that they use for fining, specifically in reds. And fining obviously is removing some of the excess tannin, and it's kind of a rounding and sort of softening process in the wine. But obviously by adding that, it makes the wine not vegan. So it's a bit of a loaded kind of sort of subject, but I mean, we don't, because we don't add anything, we are sort of considered vegan. We're not just certified by anyone, but that's basically that.
I think it's going to be an interesting space going forward. So you guys are also involved with craft beers. Can you tell us? That sounds like like also a bit of fun. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I think the craft beers came about. So I worked for SAB before I came to the business, and I left SAB in sort of middle of 2011 when craft beer was really starting to get onto the scene. I had a few outlets of mine in Cape Town that started delisting mainstream beers, and they were just listing the craft beers, and there weren't a lot around back then. Chris and I have always enjoyed complex, interesting beers, particularly Belgian style. And through friends of ours, we realized it is possible to make your own brewing setup. So we made a 50-liter setup. We started brewing some beer. I found it quite boring, but Chris enjoyed it. So he made quite a lot of beer, and it was more than we could drink. So we just started selling it from the tasting room, and there was quite a lot of interest, quite a lot of demand. So we developed the brand, which is Wild Beast, which is named after the wildebeest, which we have in our game camp here in front of the tasting room. And we started selling out of the tasting room, like I said, and then there was interest from other regions. I had a friend who had a distribution company in Joburg. He wanted another guy in PE. So then we built a bigger setup, a 500-liter setup. And by the end of 2012, we were brewing flat out and selling a lot of beers. And that was the early days of the craft beer sort of industry before all the other breweries popped up all over the country. So it went quite well. And our focus has always been wine, so that was sort of a side project. And as soon as it became a bit more competitive and everything like that, we decided just to focus on the wine. From the tasting room, we've got a few retail stores in and around Stellenbosch that stock it, so we don't make a lot. We actually outsource the brewing now because we needed the brewery for wine storage. So we've got a friend who brews for us, and so the Wild Beast beers are still available, but just from the tasting room in a few retail outlets around Stellenbosch.
Oh, that's amazing. You mentioned the game camp you have. Tell us a little bit about the game on the farm and what you guys are doing in terms of conservation.
So I mean, basically the game started just as moving down from Johannesburg, we used to spend a lot of time in the Lowveld. And like Rob mentioned, my dad, before we came down here, he developed a few game reserves, and wildlife has always been a passion of his. And I think when we set up down here, we removed a lot of the vineyards, as I mentioned, in the valleys. So the valleys were then standing open. So we've now put some Springbok, wildebeest, zebra into camps in the valleys, and it's more just a fun, fun to have around. They're kind of like pets. So it's area that we can't, or that we wouldn't really use for vineyards anymore, because it wouldn't give us the quality we're looking for. We've now kind of dedicated to indigenous fauna and flora. So it's something interesting for visitors to have a look at. And it's just a fun thing for us to have around, rather than having the land just standing open. We've put some wildlife on. So, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So you mentioned Cullinan and the Cullinan diamond. I'd love to hear that. I think everybody would love to hear that story.
Yeah, so that was, it's a bit of our family history. So obviously that's why we wanted to give his name to the wine, to our reserve red. He came over with his parents it was the mid 1800s, and his dad started a transport company, and they were transporting, obviously, with ox wagons sort of up and down the coast, up into the Eastern Cape and that. And on one of the trips, his dad died quite soon after they started it. So Thomas Cullinan was quite young. He was our great-great-grandfather. He took over the business, but it was never really his passion. And he ended up, so he was taught geology. And obviously at that time, he kind of started following a bit of the diamond rush and the gold rush, and went to Kimberley and got there too late, and then eventually ended up in Johannesburg. And he started a building company. So he was sort of out of any kind of mining or anything like that. And then he used to go out and sort of look for semi-precious stones and then polish. It was kind of his hobby, polish them up and sell them. And in doing that, he found a volcanic chute outside Johannesburg. It's where the town of Cullinan is today, where he thought he might find diamonds, and ended up buying the farm where this volcanic chute is on. They started mining it. And in 1903, he found it was at the time the biggest uncut diamond that had ever been found. It's still the most valuable. It's not the biggest anymore, but it's still the most valuable in terms of clarity diamond that's ever been found. It was 3,000 carats. And South Africa was in the process of gaining their independence from Britain. And as a parting gift, the Transvaal government bought this diamond from our great-great-grandfather and gave it it was then the King of England. And they then cut it into two stones, two main stones. There are lots of other stones that came off it, but the main or the biggest portion is now the main diamond in the scepter of the British crown jewels. And then the next biggest portion is the main diamond in the crown of the crown jewels. And it's called the Greater and the Lesser Star of Africa. But the Cullinan diamond is what the diamond was called. But at the time, he basically gave the diamond away. The Transvaal government determined the price, which was very low.
And they taxed it as well.
And they taxed it as well. And so
nothing
he
has
got
changed in that area, right?
Yeah. So yeah, he got knighted, obviously, because it was such a unique find. But unfortunately, the Sir doesn't get passed down. So me and Rob aren't Sirs. But we've named our Reserve Red, which is a Bordeaux-inspired blend, after him, the Sir Thomas Cullinan.
So tell me, have you guys at least been invited to the palace for tea at some point, or not yet?
No, our gran's been. My gran and her sister have had tea with the Queen over there, and then when she was out here. But we have not. I went to the Tower of London. I've been to go and see the crown jewels, and I told the guard that my great-great-grandfather found those, and he just told me to keep moving. So there's no kind of relationship there still.
Well, it's an amazing story, right? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So when visitors come to your farm, what else can they, they're going to taste wine, they're going to see the wildebeest pets, and, they're going to hear stories. What else can they expect to experience with you guys?
I think, obviously there's a lot of tasting rooms in Stellenbosch, and everyone needs to have like the unique offering or, some form of differentiation. So I think how we try to be different is that the tasting room is although we're on a busy road, it's not an extremely busy tasting room. We're on quite a sharp bend and people often miss us. So we try and keep it very, welcoming, and there's never big crowds here. So the service is very intimate all the time. And we renovated about 2 years ago. So there's a beautiful sort of outside area and inside area where you can sit with amazing views of Stellenbosch. So you see like this whole 180-degree view of the Stellenbosch mountains with the game camp in front of you. So it's a very beautiful place to sit and do a wine tasting. And then other things we offer is we obviously have the wine tasting and the beers. And we, in terms of food offering, we do flatbread pizzas. We've got 3 different flatbread pizzas that we make here, and cheese platters. But the focus is very much on the wine. So we don't have a restaurant or anything like that. The idea is just to offer really special wine tastings where people can, enjoy the wines in beautiful scenery, with beautiful scenery.
So back to the wine, where are most of your wines sold? You guys export?
Yeah, so it's roughly 50-50. So in the past, it was more 80 export, 20 local. We've put a lot of focus on the local markets in the last few years to develop a stronger sort of footprint locally. And so now we had about 50-50. A large portion of our local sales are through the tasting room, probably about 30% of our local sales. And then obviously just the traditional wine markets like Gauteng and in the Western Cape, PE and the Garden Route. The Lowveld, we've got quite a good partner there who sells to the lodges, and a little bit in the KZN. Obviously now we've started an online shop, which has done really well over the lockdown period. And then in exports, we've got quite a few international partners. So we work from the US, UK, Belgium, Holland, Germany. Then we've got an importer in Mexico, Singapore, Japan, a little bit to Mauritius, and then locally, we're closer to home. It's Botswana and Mozambique. So it's sort of all over, but I'd say the bulk of it is the US is our biggest market, and Europe, split between UK, Belgium, Holland, and Germany.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned your online shop, and obviously, this whole coronavirus has really forced all of us, everyone has to rethink their business models. Do you guys have any other changes or ideas in mind?
I think, through this, it's clear that direct sales are going to just get more and more popular. I mean, people wanting to buy directly from the seller in the comfort of their own homes, whether it's online or through other channels. But yeah, I think we have put more of a focus on our online shop, and we've had help from our sister with making sure that we're keeping active on social media over the lockdown period, just to not lose momentum. So I think going forward, the taste room is important for us, but trade is still the most important. I mean, our wines, we really want them to be drunk in restaurants and where people can really experience them. And then once they have, follow that out and go and get it from retail stores. So we're not really at any of the big retailers. It's mainly the smaller independent wine shops and bottle stores. But going forward, I think everyone realizes that direct selling and online is more important than it has been in the past, I think.
I think that's true. So what is the most important thing that you guys have learned from your wine journey?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I suppose, we haven't been in it for that long. So I've been on the farm for 13 years, which I suppose is actually quite a long time. But I think just to stick at it and be consistent. I think, we were talking to a French friend of my dad's when we had just started, and he said, the wine industry is only tough for the first 100 years, and then it gets much easier. So I think it's just keeping at it and staying consistent, and I think that's where we've got to be a little bit careful nowadays in following fads and fashions and what's in and what's not. I think we just want to do what we do the best we can, and try not to follow these sort of fashions and fads, So, I mean, we've been looking at what varietals to plant over the last little while, and you know, we know Bordeaux varietals and Pinotage, it's what we do best, you know, so we're going to stick at that. And what we're planting now has got to be working for our kids, you know, in 20 or 30 years time. So the vines are still going to be there and they're going to be producing fruit at its peak. So I think it's looking long term, not really living in the now, and not following fads, which is very kind of, it's foreign in the environment that we kind of in at the moment, you know, in the kind of everything must happen now. You know, it's looking at stuff long term is, I think, something that we've really learned to do, and not to get kind of flustered or phased about what's happening in the short term.
I think that's a very important business lesson. You know, if I'm just thinking back to, if you look at a place like Champagne with its history, and they've always they followed the fads in marketing, but the product remained consistent over the years.
Yeah. Mm.
So I think that's quite interesting. Can you guys
Absolutely.
give us your very own wine quote?
Sure.
You can invent one if you don't have one. Or steal one.
A wine quote.
A wine quote. I'm quickly thinking of one.
Wow.
Sure. That you really put us on the spot.
Yeah. We will have one after this.
That's for sure. Maybe you have a glass of wine first before you guys can come up with one.
Yeah. You'll come up with a few then.
Yeah. I can't think of one now. I think,
Well, anyway, while you guys are thinking, I'm sorry I stumped you there. I've heard Lisa from Lisa Loves Wines whispered in my ear that she's looking at doing some campaign on Magnum bottles, and you're producing one called the Chronicle. Can you tell us a bit more about this wine? And also,
so the Chronicle, we actually, the wine itself began in 2002. It's our estate blend, and the concept behind the wine was to make, you know, we've got our Merlot, Aspect Merlot is very site specific. It's a single vineyard. We do a very site specific Pinotage. So our single varietals are from very specific sites on the property. And I think one of the things that makes South Africa unique in terms of a wine area anywhere in the world is just our diversity in a very small space. So, I mean, we've got a 55 hectare farm. We've got slopes that face every aspect. So we've got north, east, south, and west facing slopes. We've got about 17 different soil types. They're obviously all similar parent materials, but very different soils depending on where on the slope you are. So I think, you know, we've got this incredible diversity in a very small space. And the idea with the estate blend, which became the Chronicle about 5 years ago, we wanted to make a wine that represented the estate as a whole every vintage. So we take a component from every one of our vineyard blocks, and I use the amounts of each component vary every year. So there's no recipe to the blend. We just try and make the best blend we can each year. But I use a component from the whole farm, or components from the whole farm. So it basically chronicles every vintage on the farm, where the Pinotage, the Merlot, our Sir Thomas gives you kind of a very site-specific snapshot, is like an overview of the whole property. So it's a Cape blend. So it's all 4 red varieties we grow on the property, which are Shiraz, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Pinotage. And basically, I make everything separate. I keep each block separate for a year. After a year, we'll make up blends. So we rack it, go back to barrel for another year. So it's 2 years in barrel, all French oak, and then racked and bottled. And the idea with the magnums of the Chronicle is that we wanted to, just specifically on that wine, do a magnum. So obviously 2 bottles at a more competitive price. So it's less, it costs a little less than what 2 bottles would cost you. But the great thing about a magnum, you know, if there's, more than sort of 3 or 4 people at a dinner, a Magnum's an awesome size bottle because it, you know, it lasts a little longer. It does more than one round, and they're just really fun to have on the table. You know, there's something about drinking wine out of a Magnum, and then also it matures really well in Magnums. So there are a lot of benefits to larger format bottles, and we wanted to basically bring that at a good price.
So that's interesting to me, you know, because in Europe, it's becoming a bit of a fashion to take a Magnum to a party and stuff like that. We're just talking about fashion and fads. Do you guys think it's going to something that will take off in South Africa a bit more and become a fashion?
I don't know. It's such a good question. Well, it's very difficult to say because people still always tend towards 750s, you know, to normal size bottles. I think. It's a strange, maybe it's just habit and what people are used to, but we hope it will. I mean, for us, the Magnums have been doing really well, especially around kind of, you know, around the festive season. So like around Christmas, New Year, then again in Easter. I think whenever there's sort of big gatherings or big family gatherings, people love the Magnums. But general everyday wine shopping, I mean, I think it'll always be 750s. But, you know, I mean, the other thing, the Magnums they're big to carry. They, you know, to fit in a fridge, they don't fit as easily. So I think hopefully it's something that takes off, but I don't think it'll ever overtake 750s.
Yeah, I think, well, at the moment, there is something coming up where Magnums could be a little bit of a gift, and that's Father's Day, right? Is soon.
Yes, absolutely.
So anybody listening should go grab a Magnum from you guys for Father's Day. I think it's a fantastic gift. Yeah.
Cool.
So guys, when how do people, if people want to get hold of you, how do they get hold of you guys? How do they buy your wines? What is the way?
The best would be through our website, which is www.remhoogte.co.za. We've got all our contact information on there, and info. There's tasting notes on each of the wines, a bit of information about our accommodation and our tasting room. So that's got all the basic information. Otherwise, anything more, they can contact us directly. So email addresses and contact numbers are on the websites as well. Otherwise, Instagram, we Remhoogte Wine Estate, and the same on Facebook, which is a good way just to see what we're up to as well.
And then also just to add to that, I think we've got a YouTube channel. So if you just YouTube Remhoogte or Remhoogte Wines, we've got tasting notes. I've sort of gone through every one of our wines. So if you're drinking one of our wines and you want to know a little bit more about it, have a look at that. They are also on our website, but you can check those videos out. So I think Rob's pretty covered everything.
Yeah, the YouTube one is great because Chris has done a tasting video on the Chronicle. So for those of you who buy the Magnum, it's a good opportunity to get a detailed tasting by Chris on the YouTube channel.
That's amazing. I mean, I think that is also a way forward, right? To get that information and awareness about your wines and stuff out on platforms like YouTube is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been such a pleasure to. Yeah, sorry.
No, I think that was also a result of this whole lockdown. You know, just trying to be more like I usually. So Rob generally does Europe and the East, and then I do the US twice a year, and it doesn't look like those trips are going to happen this year. So we started it for them, you know, to do basically have videos where sales staff could show when they are doing tastings, and we've had good feedback just from the general public. So it's a cool thing to check out when you're tasting one of our wines, is to actually have a look at the tasting itself.
Well, that's awesome. Guys, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. I mean, it's been very interesting. Thanks. I know you guys are busy, so thank you very much for spending the time. And good luck with everything. And hopefully we will be back to normal before we know it.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for your time as well. It's been great to tell you a bit about Remhoogte.
Yeah, thanks, Will.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Just a quick reminder that you can get that 1.5 liter Chronicle at a 20% discount. So hurry, and get in touch with Lisa at Lisa's Loves Wines. The link is in the description. This is, like I said before, the perfect Father's Day gift. Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we will be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, and other role players. Tune in every week for our latest episode. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Hi everyone, and welcome back to About the Winelands. Today I'm speaking to Gerard van der Walt. Gerard is the CEO of Paardeberg Winery. Welcome to About the Winelands, Gerard.
Thank you, Will. It's a great pleasure to be with you this morning.
No, it's our pleasure to have you, and thank you for taking the time. I know you guys are busy.
Yeah, of course, the world is upside down, and we have to deal with what we've been given. So we are making all sorts of plans to see this through and continuing in business, but it certainly is a busy time.
So Gerard, what would be interesting is if you could tell our listeners how you got involved in, a bit about yourself and how you became involved in the wine industry.
Sure. Sure. It started many years ago. So after I completed my articles, I decided to leave auditing, and I started as a financial accountant in the old Stellenbosch Farmers Winery. That was 1989. So I guess you can call me a veteran of 31 years in the wine business. And yeah, through starting at SFW, I've worked in different departments, finance, and then later on into corporate strategy. Eventually, it took me to the US, where I launched Savannah Cider in the US for SFW. But at the same time, that's when SFW and Distillers Corporation formed Distel. So I really went over under the Distel banner. And then shortly after that, they asked me to run the European operations for Distel, sales marketing operation from London. And that's where I spent a number of years before I returned back to Cape Town, back into a strategy role at the head office of Distel in Stellenbosch. Yeah, so I left Distel, I think it was just 2 or 3 years after returning back from overseas. And for the last 10 years, I've been at Paardeberg, where I'm the CEO and looking after the business development for the company. So yeah, that's from a a business point of view. But just from a personal point of view, I can tell you that I've got 5 kids, all from the same wife, and the youngest is 12.
Wow.
So, yeah, I need to work for at least 10 more years, but I really don't mind because I think the wine industry is great fun, and I love going to work every day.
Where in the US were you stationed?
I lived in Boston, and yeah, so we took the family over to Boston. We were there for quite a short period of time because the merger of SFW and Distillers dictated the process, and I had to after about 8 months, I think 9 months, I had to move to London. So it was a short stay in the US, but utterly enjoyable.
Okay, interesting. So Paardeberg Wines, can you share a bit of the history of the cellar and the winery?
Sure. Well, we started in 1941, so next year Paardeberg will be what you can call an octogenarian in years, but we are going to be as fit and as nimble and with it as a 21-year-old because we are still very innovative and progressive in our thinking and the way that we drive the business. But it started in 1941 with a person by the name of Jan Rousseau, who got together with a couple of farmers in the area near the Paardeberg or Paardeberg, and he decided to form a cooperative and appoint their own winemaker, to basically achieve better pricing for themselves on a collective basis. So we adopted the name Paardeberg as we are at the foothills of the Paardeberg mountain. There's a bit of an anomaly. If you just look at our logo, we have a zebra. So just to clear that up, the Dutch, when they looked at these quaggas walking on the Paardeberg mountain, they said that's one wilde paard, one wild horse. Yeah, so we decided to keep the zebra, and yeah, so that's really something that distinguishes us, make us very recognizable. You'll see that through all our products and everywhere in our media. So since 1941, Paardeberg has been quite innovative. We, I think, was one of the first people to really appoint a viticulturist in those days. But I think we really were put on the map by somebody by the name of Joseph Huskinson, who was a winemaker at Paardeberg for 38 years. He was trained under Günter Brösel at Niederberg, knowledge at Paardeberg, and really put us on the map in terms of winemaking. And then from there on, it just progressed. Nowadays, we are what we call a group of companies, where we have 2 facilities that process grapes. One at Paardeberg in the Paarl area, and then the other one at Bottleray in Stellenbosch. We're also renting another facility from Boland in Paarl. So we have got quite a diverse and big business. We have 32 shareholders, so all producers from the area, and they supply us with grapes on a contractual basis. But Paardeberg is very brand focused. So what we've done is we've invested a tremendous amount in barrel space and small batch processing. So a lot of our brands are managed like from the vineyard, very intense vineyard management, right through to the cellar. So we have brands, we sell also wines to other brand owners, and then we've got some distribution company in South Africa. So it's quite a diverse organization at this point in time.
It sounds fascinating. Have you guys followed the trend in the 90s by changing from a members cooperative to a private company then as well?
Yeah, I think we were probably a bit later than the rest. It was 2012 when we made the conversion.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just really a statutory conversion. I think in essence, we were already operating as a market-driven organization before that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that was the actual date that we made the conversion.
So would you accept grapes also that are not from your shareholders or buy-in, or does everything come from your, your historically the farms that started Paardenburg?
Yeah, I think we've outgrown our normal supply base. So we do contract grapes in as well. But when it comes to our brands in particular, we're obviously very fussy, and we really just make sure that those are from the area. Because, and we'll talk maybe hopefully a little bit later about our winemaking philosophy and how we approach things.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think most of it is from the area.
So talking about that, I mean, you guys have expanded into more than just a winery. People can actually come there and experience things when they come to Paardenburg. So if a guest come to you, what can they expect? Or, when you are fully open for guests, what experiences do you provide?
Yeah. Well, when we are fully open, which is hopefully not too long from now, with the lockdown hopefully coming to an end soon, you can come to do some wine tasting. We've got a fantastic modern facility that we revamped, I think, about 3-4 years ago, where you can do wine pairings. We've got some interesting stuff there. We've done some chocolate wine pairings. We've done some different Shannon expressions, a whole variety of kind of trying to be unique to our environment and what we produce, kind of tastings. We have a restaurant. It's called Eat at Paardenburg. It's run by Rob Hahn. Rob is actually a well-known guy in the area, but some interesting information about Rob is that he was actually one of the chefs that were selected at President Mandela's inauguration ceremony at the Union buildings. And wow. A few of them were handpicked, and they did a private function for him. Yeah, so Rob's got some history there. So yeah, if you want to meet the guy who cooked for Mr. Mandela, then you're welcome to come meet him at Paardenburg. There's a photo of him as well, of the event. And yeah, so we've got a restaurant. It's really a family-orientated restaurant, so very easy kind of environment. Lots of open space outside, where the children can run around a little bit and the parents can relax. We've got a jungle gym, and sometimes we also put up a jumping castle for the kids. So yeah, it's quite safe, kid friendly, and parents can relax. So yeah, good food, great wine, and then yeah, there's also some venues as well where we can do functions, and I can maybe elaborate a little bit on that if you want.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, but I see you do weddings and other events. So I'd love to hear what you actually offer. It's always nice for people when they're looking for event venues to know what is in the area.
We've got a function hall, which can, so it's got a beautiful chandelier, a roof, chandeliers all over. The capacity is 150 for a wedding. So yeah, it's got some character as well. Beautiful wooden doors that was part of the cellar from the word go. So some old wood there, and it's got a lovely view. So balcony as well, where you can look out over the vineyards. That's weddings, and then of course seminars. So for seminars, we can probably put in a few more people in terms of the seating, and it's quite affordable as well. So if people are interested, they're more than welcome to contact us and explore the packages that we've got for them. We have an area called the Kwacha. The Kwacha is a horseshoe-shaped tasting room where we can do bespoke tastings with a winemaker. You just book beforehand, and we can do a very specific tasting for you, and a far more in-depth for the connoisseur who wants to maybe just delve in a little bit deeper into the wines and the way that we make them. And then we'd also do little workshop or provide workshop venues for companies that want to maybe do team building and just break away with a small group to strategize, or whatever the reason they want to just hire an outside venue. And we can couple with that, of course, some fun activities. So if you want to do the team build and a wine pairing, we will do that. And we'll do that in our dryland room, which is a modern boardroom facility. Yeah, and then, of course, what we're trying to do from time to time is also have some fun events. So about, I think it was 19, sure, I better think now. It was about 10 years ago, yeah, 9 years ago, that we started with what we call the Family Festival. We actually called it the October Festival because it was held in October, but there was no beer. But yeah, so the Family Festival is where we draw in a lot of people, and we basically just have music and eats and just a fun family day where people can relax and become very popular. So we've continued with that every year. And the Family Festival, hopefully we can hold one again this year. I'm just a bit concerned about when we will unlock for that kind of thing. But yeah, certainly. So we have that. We've expanded that. We've done the Pinotage and Biltong Festival at Paardeberg. We started last year with the Chenin Blanc Festival. And maybe just on that point, you know, Paardeberg is very well known for Chenin Blanc. It's just such a beautiful grape that is suited to our area. And that's why, you know, we call the function hall even the Chenin Blanc Hall. And we also have this Chenin Blanc Festival that we now plan to run annually.
Are these festivals organized by yourselves as principal? In other words, these are festivals that you actually originate and organize yourselves?
Yeah, the Family Festival is a self-organized festival. The Pinotage and Biltong was a festival run by an outside party. But the Chenin Blanc one, we started with using a third party just to facilitate, but we do plan to continue with that ourselves going forward. And just to make it a bit more, how can I put it, accessible for the wider wine public, we've decided to draw in other wine farms as well. So for the Chenin Blanc Festival, we'll certainly invite other Chenin producers to come and spend a day with us and also have their table where they will show their Chenin. You know, for us, it's important to show the capability and diversity of Chenin that our country can offer. You know, we've registered the trademark Home of Chenin Blanc. So we do see ourselves as the home.
Very clever.
But we don't mind sharing our home with other Chenin producers because we think that, you know, if everybody starts talking about Chenin Blanc, it's got lots of potential to become one of South Africa's signature wine varieties, next to Pinotage, of course. Yeah, so we do events, and then we've got plenty of plans just to extend the experience for visitors to our facility. It's very safe. It's completely fenced off, the whole property. Good access control, and of course nowadays very safe. Also with regards to virus, if you're worried about viruses, you know, we follow all the right protocols and make sure that people are as safe as possible.
Yeah, which is obviously important in today's environment. You mentioned the Chenin Blanc, which brings us to the wines, and you know, this is obviously the most important thing. So tell us a bit about the wines that you are producing and also your winemaking philosophy.
Sure. So I think maybe the one thing that we need to understand about our area and our wines that you will find in our brands is that it is pretty much influenced by dry land vineyards, so unirrigated vineyards, which we have a lot of. About 60% of our vineyards are not irrigated. And what we've done is we've really owned that platform as well. So if you look at our ranges, I can quickly speak to that. You know, we have what we call the classic range. And then we have above that, the vineyard collection range. And then above that, the dryland collection. Each one of those ranges will have a component of dryland vineyard wine in it. And we strongly believe that these unirrigated vineyards really produce the best fruit. I remember one day also watching a TV program on the BBC where Dan Jago, who was the buyer for one of the big supermarkets, remarked, we all know that the best wines are made from dryland vineyards. And I certainly concur with that, because it's small berries and the fruit is concentrated. So you have a deep color. You've got lovely fruit flavors, because the flesh to skin ratio, I think, is what makes the difference there. Maybe unlike highly irrigated vineyards, where you might find that the wines are not as deep in color and maybe a little bit less thinner on the palate. So dryland is important for us, and we really believe that is what distinguishes our wines. We have a viticulturist that, of course, manages the vineyards. We classify all these vineyards into their quality, their ability based on terroir, history. As you know, we've got long history, so we keep good records, and therefore, over time, we've worked out exactly which wines, which vineyards, which slopes are producing the best wines, and we've obviously matched those and mapped it to our brands across the quality spectrum. Lots of hard work in the vineyards. We do very sustainable kind of farming. It's dryland vineyards, a lot of it, and we do cover crops to protect the soils. We also use the ladybirds and some other what do you call it, gogakis, that actually eat the vitrus. What do you call it? Lois. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with English here. But yeah, so we try and do things right in the vineyards. But at the end of the day, it shows in your wines. And then from a wine team point of view, I mean, we've got a whole group of winemakers headed up by Albertus Lowe, who's also been in the industry for many, many years. He's got red winemaker, white winemaker, and a small cellar winemaker. And they all work together. I think one can safely say a lot of the wine's quality is made in the vineyards. And then in the cellar, of course, you have an opportunity to enhance it or destroy it. And I have to say that our team has done extremely well over years. So if you go look at our website and the accolades that we've received for our wines, it really is a long, long list. I mean, I remember just shortly after we launched the dryland collection, completely made from unirrigated vineyards. We won the best producer of the year at the Michelangelo, and it was mostly those wines that really came through. And it was just, I think, 2013 or 2014, somewhere there. Yeah, so I really, if you want to ask me, what really distinguishes us is the fact that we have got dryland components to our wines. And also maybe another interesting thing is that we do try and bring in very unique varietals and to try and be a little bit different. So we had a straight Cinsault. We believe it's one of the only dryland bush vine Cinsauts. We have a Cinsault Rosé. We've got a Malbec in our range. We've got Grenache Blanc. These are all wines that we put in our let's call it the innovative space, and the vineyard collection is the range that houses these wines. But then, of course, we have got also interesting stuff in our dryland and classic ranges. We do MCC sparkling, Chenin-based sparkling, and also Pinot Noir Chardonnay-based sparkling. Yeah, so innovation is very important. We recently also launched wine in a can at the very basic level. So we've got a range called the Soft Smooth Red range. Yeah, so maybe let me stop there for a minute.
Well, I'd like to ask you about the can wine, because that seems to be something that's going to become a trend. Do you think it'll become a trend? Will it just be a fad? I see the Michelangelo awards are going to now actually reward, or they're going to have the same thing for canned wines now that they have for normal wines in terms of their ratings and stuff.
Yeah. Look, I mean, if I have to say personally, I mean, you know, I really do like to drink wine out of a glass. But I do think we need to recognize that there's a young new generation coming up that you know, they have different conventions and different ways of thinking about things, and yeah, so we've really launched our wine in a can for that reason. So we are targeting young people across the spectrum, and we really want to, particularly in South Africa, draw also from the underdeveloped wine market. So, you know, we really need more people to adopt wine and bring them into the wine category. So, you know, it's early days for us, but if I just look at the reports around the world, and South Africa does seem to follow trends often. The US, for instance, has just run out of cans, and they said it's not because, you know, there was a problem with can production. The problem was that they didn't anticipate the demand. So the consumer demand was of such a nature that they couldn't supply because of a can shortage. And we find everywhere around the world, it's about sustainability as well. You know, people want to move to carbon-friendly packaging. I think convenience is a big factor. You know, weight, if you're traveling on an airline, and I think there's just so many applications for wine in a can. But the important thing, I think, to remember about wine in a can is, you know, you mustn't see it as a cheap wine alternative. We really need to put the very best wines we can also in the can, because yeah, it's recruiting new consumers into the category, and you can't do that with wines that don't stand up to the challenge.
Well, it's very interesting. You're talking about the younger market, and I think the wine drinkers, the young market for wine drinkers are now the millennials really. And, you know, they're also interested in things like you said, sustainability, but also things about additives in the wines, like, you know, vegan, the whole idea of vegan wines and stuff like that. Is this something that you guys are addressing? How do you find, you know, that issue?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, for us to go completely vegan friendly does mean that we have to make some adjustments in the cellar. But what we can at this point already tell you is that all our red wines are vegan friendly. And we've actually advertised that on some of our products, so that the classic range. We've incorporated the vegan sticker on the back of the label. We have done some trials on the white wines to try and move that over to vegan friendly. We, in all probability, will do so from 2021. For us, it was very important to keep quality. So changing your process to stay completely vegan friendly mustn't mean that you compromise on quality. And that's why we haven't moved already this year, but next year the white wine should, particularly for those branded ranges, be vegan friendly as well. It is quite big. If you look at the overseas market, again, the trends there, the Scandinavian markets are very, very focused on vegan friendly, organic, and that kind of thing. So yeah, we are very much trying to also speak to the vegan and sustainability audience.
Well, that's awesome. So we're talking about the Scandinavian markets and stuff like that. Where are your wines sold? And what is your, I mean, are you primarily exported? You sell in the local market? How does that mix work?
Yeah, so we are very much an export-led organization. So most of our wines, our turnover is derived from the overseas market, which of course at the moment is standing us in good stead. The rand that is quite weak, so export profitability is quite good. And the fact that we can continue to do business in the international market right now, although we can't do it in the South African market. But we already embarked, I think I mentioned earlier on, that we're a market-driven organization. So we started exploring international markets, sure, a long time ago already, 2009, or even before that, we were in the international market, but we really stepped it up. We've invested heavily in people. So we've beefed up our human capital infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And at this point in time, we sell all over the world. So from China, Malaysia, Hong Kong, we sell to Russia, in Africa, Kenya, Belgium, Holland, Germany, Sweden, Finland, Norway, UK. We do Canada, US. All different kind of markets. We've invested a lot of effort in exploring the African market, so there's a lot of time and money going into that, and also the Far East, so China, and then the US. Europe, we do good business in, and we continue to support those markets. But it is a little bit more mature, and we think that there's a lot of value to be derived from the US in particular, albeit that it's a tough market. It's really not an easy market. Many people have tried over many years, and it's not a walk in the park. The Americans are complicated. They've got a 3-tier system, and you've got to get through all that complexity and find the right distributor.
Interesting. It's also interesting that I've spoken to a few places who've mentioned the African market, and it seems that there's quite a bit of growth and also maybe a premium in price in exporting to Africa at the moment. Yeah, I think, at the moment, right now, I think worldwide pricing is a little bit under pressure, unfortunately. Yeah, of course. We've seen, particularly in France and Spain, the guys have actually resorted to approaching their government to distill wines just to get rid of surplus. But I think, generally speaking, your on-trade is where you can achieve the better pricing. And in Africa, there's a lot of tourism, a lot of on-trade facilities where you can achieve good pricing. But there's also a good market at the entry level. So at the moment, I think that side of the business, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you are, is growing, at the expense of the more pricier wines. But yeah, there's great opportunity in Africa. If we look at the industry players in South Africa, they've really invested in Africa over a long time as well, recognizing that the predictions of Africa being a potential economic powerhouse. So we do hope that that's true. As I said, we're putting a lot of time and effort into it, and we're already seeing the benefits coming through. Interesting. I see on your website you also have a wine club. Can you explain a bit more about that? Yes, indeed. The good news is that there are no joining fees. So all you have to do to get yourself active as a member is to buy 12 bottles or more of our wines, and you can then activate your membership automatically. And then thereafter, we only require you to buy 6 cases per annum to keep your membership active. If you do, you can get 10% off your wine purchases at the classic range. And for higher up, you can get 15% off the vineyard and the dryland and our iconic wine ranges. In addition, you can get a free tasting for you and 3 friends every year. Receive 10% discount on venue hires for weddings, parties. And then you get invitations to exclusive wine club events where we will do wine tastings with a winemaker, educational kind of tastings. And then, of course, free delivery to all the main centers in South Africa if you buy more than 1,000 Rand worth of wine. That's awesome. So if you're planning a wedding this year, it's a good thing to, before you buy the ring, to actually join the wine club first, because you're going to save all over. Absolutely. So are you planning a wedding, Will? I don't think so. Not yet. Not again.
Let me know. Let me know.
I'll let you know if I hear of somebody. Gerard, the big thing obviously at the moment is the coronavirus, and you know, it's forced all of us to rethink our business models. So, do you have any changes or new ideas in mind?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, as we are right now engaged in conversation across the electronic platform, you know, that's clearly become a new way of working. People are, you know, connecting in different ways. But you're right. I mean, you know, the whole Corona thing has slowed down the world, and people are reflecting personally and also from a business point of view. You know, am I busy with the right model? You know, where do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? And yeah, it's been no different for us. You know, I think the main strategy that we have, I mentioned already, is that we are an export-led organization. And, you know, we've invested in that channel exponentially. And we believe that this virus has really proved for us, you know, that is where we should continue to focus. It is a big world, and it's a diverse market. So, you know, the opportunities are endless. And if you just look at profitability, it certainly is by far the best profitable channel. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to participate in South Africa. I mean, just to point out, and maybe I didn't emphasize that earlier, we do have a distribution company in South Africa called PV Liquor Merchants that does the distribution for our own brands, but also for other brands. So we do distribution for brands like Neertlingshof and Slanghoek and others. So, yeah, I think we are committed to the local market, but the fact that we are export-led in our strategy is a positive. And for us, this time in history has really proved it, that it's not a bad place to be. But then, of course, you know, we moved to a virtual world, and we've realized that there's so much you can do electronically. I mean, we launched this wine in a can that I spoke about earlier during lockdown, and we had a virtual launch. You know, so we had a whole audience of media people zooming in with Trevor Keane, a bartender, who was actually bartender of the year in 2019, making wine cocktails for us. You know, and we did it all online. And the next day there was a whole lot of media exposure based on this. So we're participating in international wine shows in the next couple of weeks, business-to-business wine shows, where you will be, your wines will go over to the potential buyers, and you know, you can do wine tastings and discuss your wines across the globe, but doing it via Zoom or some other platform. So I think, yeah, definitely, you know, you can really rethink your business in terms of your cost structures, travel costs, that kind of thing. And I think the other big learning for us was that, you know, social platforms are really the communication medium going forward. We all know that. And we've already invested in that for quite a number of years, and we've escalated that investment, and it's paying off. So, you know, another learning is e-commerce and e-platforms for marketing and communicating with your consumers on e-platforms. That's the future. So get smart at that, get fit in terms of your electronic communication and engagement with your consumers. That's the way that they work. I know, you know, we all wish that at some point in time we can just chuck the phone in the bin because we spend so much time with it. But you know, it is unfortunately the way that people nowadays are going to communicate. Well, I say unfortunately, but you know, that's the reality. And we better tie into it.
I think you're right. I think also there's so much opportunity. You know, people, I think, always think back to the good old days before these things were there. But actually, if we had these problems we have now, we wouldn't be able to do anything. So I think technology is more of a blessing than a curse than we realize. And it's like been like that for every new generation. There's been technology that the older generation didn't like, but the new generation found as a blessing, right? I honestly would rather prefer to drive around than to hop around on a horse or any, you know, any of the older things. But what I'm wondering is the whole issue of direct to consumer, right? Understand if for export driven, it's more business to business sale. What about inside South Africa, direct to consumer business, and also even internationally? Because the one thing about technology and the internet, it actually cuts out the middleman. I mean, that's been proven by Amazon and those things. How do you see that play out in wine distribution over time?
Absolutely. You know, I think consumers want to have information about their product, and they want to be able to go back to the source immediately. You know, so I mean, for instance, we've explored also opportunities like the artificial, what do you call it? I forget the terminology.
Virtual reality.
Virtual reality. Thank you very much. So, you know, if you just engage those things, I mean, we've got the technology devices that can handle all these things nowadays. So your communication to your consumers is direct, it's quick, it's, you know, interactive, and it can be real time, and can update it real time. So I think you're 100% correct. You know, I'm unfortunately, I'm of the old school, so I can't even think of all the potential applications of this. But it's, you know, the one thing that I've realized more and more is that you need to get smart people engaged in your business that can drive these platforms and speak directly to consumers. Now, even if it goes through the channel in which they buy the wine is not direct. When they engage with your product, they want direct contact. It's that personal thing that makes a difference. So yeah, you know, people also the platforms that people use to communicate are powerful things as well. You know, so when you give somebody a great experience, it is known very quickly by many people. If you give them a bad experience, it's the same. You know. So you really need to be engaged, I think is the word, and real time engagement.
I think that is the big thing about technology. Does not really, it exposes us for who we really are. If we have a bad product, it will expose us. If we have a good product, it will expose us, you know, positively. And where you're right is that I think the one thing that has changed is that as an exporter, you now need to actually communicate with the consumer, whereas before you could have gotten away by just communicating with your distributor and let them actually talk to the consumer. I think that is maybe one of the main changes, what I'm hearing from you.
Absolutely right.
So Gerard, it's very interesting. If you look back over the years, I mean, you had a very interesting wine journey from, you know, South Africa, then to the States, and then to London, and then back to South Africa, and then, you know, you went to Paardeberg, and now you're on this journey. What is the most important thing that you've learned from your wine journey?
Sure. Well, I think the one thing I've learned is that I shouldn't stop learning. You know, just when you think that you understand the business, it gets a bit more interesting and a bit more complicated. But if I really have to, you know, say the one thing that has stood out for me, and that has really made a huge difference in my experience, is it's all about relationships. You know, a relationship is something that will carry you through when it really gets tough. And we've seen that now in the past couple of weeks as well. You know, people want to do business with people that they can trust, that they relate to, and that engages with them. So, you know, that's the one thing that one must never ever neglect in the wine business. It's a social product. You know, it's a product that makes it easy for us to engage with one another. But it's really about relationships. And a lot of time and effort needs to go into building those. And it's something that you establish over time, but you continue to work on that. Yeah, maybe if I can add one more thing, you know, at the business end, it's also about distribution. You know, route to market is so important. I've learned that you can have the best product in the world and the best message in the world, but without route to market, you're dead. You know, so you know, build those relationships, those distribution networks, those customer base relationships, and that's gonna just carry you through.
Well, amazing. Yeah, that's true. The platform that you to get your product or your message out is extremely important. So yes, you're right. So can you sum this all up with your very own or your favorite wine quote?
Oh, okay. Well, I think I'll make it pretty much about wine. And what I will say is, you know, a wine's beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If it works for you, it is a good wine. You know, I think we need to embrace the fact that there's a lot of diversity in our wine offering in South Africa. And we've got different terroirs and different expressions of it. And each one of those brands have got some consumer that is going to love it, you know, and at the end of the day, if they like your wine, then it's a good wine.
Oh, awesome. Gerard, thank you very much for your time. Just as a last thing, if people want to get hold of you guys, or they want to come and visit you, how do they get hold of you?
Easy information, of course, is found on our website, so www.parabath.co.za. We've incidentally just revamped the platform, so it should be quite fresh. A lot of information there, and also email contacts, etc. Otherwise, they can of course phone the seller. Our telephone details are on there as well. Yeah, we happy to engage with anybody that would take the time to engage with our products. Maybe come and visit us. We'd love that.
Oh, that's awesome. So we'll put all the links down in the description of, where this is distributed so that people can get that. So I'm just looking at the description below. And Gerard, thank you very, very much. I know you're busy and you took a long time, and you gave us quite a bit of information, which is great. And I think our listeners will enjoy it. So thanks for spending the time.
Thank you very much. Well, it's been my pleasure, and I do wish you well, and whoever listens to this, please stay safe, but also stay positive.
I think that is a very important thing that you just said there. Stay positive, right? Because we need to keep our mental and our physical strength. Thank you. Thank you, Gerard.
My pleasure. All the best.
Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description. Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we will be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, and role players. Tune in every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for your latest episodes. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to About the Winelands. Today we are talking to Giselle Coetzee. Giselle is the Sales and Marketing Manager, as well as the winemaker at Melisat Vineyards. Hi Giselle.
Hi Will, thank you very much. It's nice to chat with you.
It's our pleasure. Tell me, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in the wine industry?
Yes, well, I was born in Johannesburg, quite away from the winelands, but we always had wine in the house, and you kind of get curious about how wine is made. And we always came to the Cape for holidays. And when the Cape Doctor blew, we ended up at wineries tasting wine. And in those days, a lot of the winemakers and owners of the farms used to present the tastings. And this was so wonderful, and I loved the whole vibe about the industry. So eventually I started doing some wine courses in Johannesburg, and every holiday I spent in the Cape. And I completed my Cape Wine Academy Diploma 2 in those days. I didn't have the WSET courses then. I met my husband and we moved to Germany, and I became a wine consultant in Germany. And that really opened the world of wine